Good morning and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public meeting and public hearing for May 12th, 2026. We're going to begin by taking attendance, and I'm going to ask our legal counsel, Mark Silverman, to call the roll.
Vice Chair Master,
Here.
Commissioner Chen,
Yeah.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Here.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby, Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Mann,
Here.
Commissioner Wilder.
This meeting is being held in our hearing room at 253 Broadway on the second floor. It is also being held via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube for anyone who would like to participate remotely. We're going to begin with a public meeting agenda for items which have already had a public hearing, and then move to a public hearing agenda for new applications on our designated properties. Now I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you, Vice Chair Master. Good morning, everyone. We'll start today's Preservation Department agenda with public meeting item number 1, LPC 25-08077, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 5096, Lot 1, 83 Marlborough Road in the Prospect Park South Historic District. This is a classical revival style synagogue building designed by Simon B. Eisendrath of Eisendrath and Horwitz and built in 1913. The application is to construct a barrier-free access ramp and entry vestibule with canopy. This was last presented at the public hearing of March 24th, 2026. No action was taken at that time. The applicants will present revisions to the proposal in response to your comments after we open the proceedings.
Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are open.
Good morning. My name is Christian Collis from Brower, Hauptman and Larkin Architects. Also here with me, I have Nancy Frost, co-president of Beshert Synagogue. And today we're going to share with you our proposal for accessibility at Beshert Synagogue. So just from a general overview standpoint, we're going to reshare what we showed to you all last time. We're going to share our design exploration requested from all of you, and then we're going to share a little tweak that we made that we felt like was an appropriate response to your comments. So our initial design, which you can see here off on the right side, this is the main front of the synagogue on the corner of Church and Marlborough. We're proposing an ADA accessible ramp and stair, which kind of goes into that alleyway on the right side of the screen. This would be the view from further down the street. You can see down the alleyway, we were originally proposing a double switchback ramp with some wire infill, and then kind of down in the alley, you can see a glass canopy and vestibule that extended a little bit out from the existing building. Just looking at this in Axon to kind of give you an understanding of its connection to the building, you can see the ramp out front, the walkway down the alley, and we were trying to align our glass canopy with the existing stained glass mullion. Again, trying to not touch it, but still provide as much light and then coverage to anybody waiting at the front door. The existing vestibule is too short door to door, so we were proposing to pull the front door out in order to make it fully ADA accessible. Our first review, you kind of expressed some concerns about the railing. You wanted us to explore the idea of maybe sloping the walkway in the alleyway, and then also take a further look at the canopy itself. So this is a section of kind of what we're proposing. I just want to share with you the sloped walkway. We have an interesting condition where there's existing windows in the alleyway that we kind of have to move our storefront around for the vestibule. So we pulled it all the way back close against the building in order to maintain some coverage for somebody standing in front waiting to get in the door. And then we stopped our new canopy just short of the stained glass so we don't interfere with it at all. The 1 to 20 slope in the alleyway itself gets us 10 inches of elevation change, which does have an impact on the ramp out front, which reduces it to just a single switchback. You can also see here that we've changed our infill to a vertical infill to kind of get away from the cable infill. If you look down the alleyway, you can see our shorter, more modest vestibule, kind of addressing those issues. One of the concerns that we do have with the sloped alleyway in coming from the door is that the ramp ends up terminating into stairs, which we feel like isn't the safest condition. So we're kind of trying to balance, adding accessibility to this building while also making sure it's safe. We felt like this vestibule response was a good one, so we tried to carry that over into a new proposed design, again, with the same vestibule that you just saw, but we're getting rid of the ramp in the alleyway to try to remove that unsafe condition. As you can see from the front here, we go back to a double switchback, but we're removing as much infill as we can by code. So we only have infill on the railing on the first switchback and at the landing, and then below that, we don't have any infill to kind of remove any visual noise. As you look down the alley, you can then see the existing vestibule kind of pulled against the building, creating some coverage for anybody waiting to get in the building.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Ginsburg?
I don't quite understand why you're saying the 1 and 20 would be unsafe. Can you explain that, please?
So by nature, it's not unsafe, but we think a ramp that ends in a stair without any railing stopping you. So for instance, if somebody loses control over the wheelchair, the ramp then rolls down right into a stair and they could kind of go over the edge of the stair.
But there would be a level space in front of the stair
There
and in
would
front
be,
of the ramp.
yes, but
Okay.
there's still nothing to stop you from continuing on.
Commissioner Goldblum?
Back, could you just put a rail in the middle of the stair?
You could, you'd end up just kind of hitting yourself in the middle of your body on a railing. While it would stop you from going down the stair, I'm not sure it's the greatest conclusion. We are happy to move forward with the sloped ramp in the alley. We think this is a fine solution. We just have our safety concerns, and we wanted to present an option where we didn't have that kind of unsafe condition.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's see. So let's go ahead and start the discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Yeah. I think having the 1 and 20 ramp and then getting rid of that third switchback is the way to go. So I'd approve it as noted with that option. Besides that, I think this is appropriate, and I appreciate your responsiveness to our previous comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, I appreciate the responsiveness to the comments as well. I too think that utilizing the 1 and 20 slope to eliminate one of the switchbacks is ultimately less busy, less visually busy and fussy. I would favor that solution. I would be fine with a center handrail at the stair as well, and I think that would likely solve the applicant's safety concerns, and as well as clearly meeting all the code requirements.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree. I think that Mark's solution is the way to go.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe? And Commissioner Chen?
I just want to add, I think the applicants on the alleyway of 1 to 20 pitch, his point, I do understand, and I concur in the sense that having been a victim of several times flying through black ice is very dangerous because of the wet condition that we're experiencing all over the world. That is, the danger exists. Obviously, the double back on is a less elegant solution, But for safety standpoint of view, I tend to agree with the applicant.
Sure. Commissioner Ginsburg?
That's a valid point. They can always put some electric heating in the ramp that they turn on when they have icy conditions to resolve that.
Good point. I mean, I think that it's up to the rest of the commission if you think that is the way to go. Because the key to radiant heat is to make sure the building maintenance person remember to turn it on. It was a classic lawsuit where an architect put in a giant radiant heat on the parking lot so that you don't have to shovel the snow. No one ever told the operator. The switch was behind the desk, and it was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit.
Wow. Yeah, I tend to agree with Commissioner Ginsburg and Commissioner Mahan. I understand that there might be a slight risk with the slope. I think that if they explored with staff possibly putting that center rail, I think perhaps that would
Yeah.
be very helpful.
Center rail will help a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to read the motion?
Yep. With regards to LPC 25-08077, 83 Marlborough Road, Prospect Park South Historic District, a classical revival style synagogue building designed by Simon B. Eisendrath of Eisendrath and Horowitz and built in 1913. Application is to construct a barrier-free access ramp and entrance vestibule with canopy. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Prospect Park South Historic District. I recommend approval as noted, finding that the primary entrance is no longer used by the congregation and the secondary side entrance corridor is used instead. Therefore, the location of the proposed ramp will provide barrier-free access to the entire building in the most direct manner possible while keeping the architectural features at the prominent central entrance intact. That the removal of utilitarian doors, stairs, temporary ramp, and concealed concrete vault lights will not eliminate any significant architectural features, and the historic brick band course on the building facade will remain exposed. That the existing temporary ramp takes up nearly half of the corridor in this deep constrained passageway, resulting in an awkward, crowded condition, and the proposed ramp and vestibule will create a more welcoming and accessible corridor and entrance. That the switchback of the proposed ramp is made less imposing by an open railing at the lowest run. That material of the ramp, including red brick sidewall, concrete curbing, and surface will harmonize with the material of the building and the railings, comprising a simple pipe rail with picket infill, which relates well to the simple historic ironwork found at the building. That the new metal and glass vestibule entrance with projecting canopy and applied vinyl signage will be located deep in the recessed corridor with limited visibility from the public thoroughfare, will be light and transparent in character, and will not touch or obscure the adjacent stained glass window. And that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the streetscape of the Prospect Park South Historic Districts. However, we want to see a 1:20 slope of the path in the alleyway so that the ramp in the front only has one switchback. So working with staff to resolve that and potentially put a center railing at the stair to prevent someone in a wheelchair from accidentally going down the stairs.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quembe, Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved. Please continue to work with staff. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
We'll now move to our public hearing agenda, starting with public hearing item number 1. That's LPC 26-09539, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8033, Lot 44, 230 Grosvenor Street in the Douglaston Historic District, a Tudor Revival-style freestanding house designed by Walter I. Halliday and built in 1927. And the application is to install awnings.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pia Thompson. My husband Duke is here with the homeowners of the property. So today we're going to walk you through the changes we'd like to make to the exterior of the Thompson home located at 230 Grosvenor Street in Douglaston, New York, Douglas Manor. It's also affectionately known as the Anne McMahon house, as Anne McMahon lived in the property for 50 years before we bought the property. So today I want to go over the project description, where we're located, the existing and proposed changes, some samples of materials, and then neighborhood compares. So on the south facade of the house, we have a glass solarium, which we would like to remove and restore the Tudor Revival charm to the yard space. This structure was added before LPC was instituted in Douglas Manor and was done without DOB approvals. So that was a previous homeowner. But what we would like to do is create an open air patio that has irregular flagstone in the yard space with a retractable awning. So here's the location of the property within the historic district. And here's a little bit closer up view where the house is located on the street and where it's located on the actual lot. You can see on the right-hand side, the squiggly lines are the existing solarium. This is an architectural survey from September of 2025. And this is a little bit more information. This is actually from your designation report about the property. So this is the overview of the proposed improvements. The area that we're going to focus on right now is highlighted in red. The other areas are being addressed in a desk review. So this is what we have currently. As you can see, it's completely inconsistent with the house. It's very modern looking. It's an eyesore, and it actually is beginning to become problematic in terms of its structure. And so what we would like to do is take it down, and in the area where you see outlined in white, we would create a flagstone patio that would have a covered awning. So on East Drive, walking north, I've taken pictures to show what a passerby would see as they walk by the property. And so you could see the solarium when you approach the driveway, and then as you get to the edge of the driveway, you no longer can see the solarium. And so that would be removed. So here we have, on the bottom, we have the existing facades from south side and the East Drive. And then on the proposed on the above, it shows what it would look like once the solarium was gone. So this is the proposed awning materials that we would like to use. And as you can see on the right-hand side, it shows a sample picture of what the awning would look like extended and retracted. So there are a few awnings in the neighborhood. I would say most notably, it's the Douglaston Club, which is located at 600 West Drive. It's one of the oldest buildings in the neighborhood. And on the left is a photograph of the club as it stands today. And on the right is a New York City street photograph of what it looked like in the past. And so that was kind of the idea that we were trying to get to. Obviously, it's a completely different style building, but that reducing the heat, making it a little bit more enjoyable to spend some time outside. This is just an overview of the city requirements regarding no DOB permits required for an awning. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
Did I miss it? Did you show what your pavers are gonna look like?
It's irregular. I don't think it's in this one, but it's irregular
Plate?
slate. Yes, it matches the front walkway,
Okay. And is it raised or it's just right on the ground?
level to the ground.
Super. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, let's see if we have anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item. Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Participants on Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Right. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Queens Community Board 11 recommends approval.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and close the hearing if there's no other questions. Commissioner Mahan, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. I just want to note that the greenhouse is actually something that is going to be approved at staff level. And so I think what we're looking at here today is just the awning. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, having lived nearby, across the border on the other side, not the Douglaston side, but the Little Neck side, I'm very familiar with this area. And the applicant is right. The existing structure is stood out, so I think that to have it demolished is the right approach, as well as by converting it to the paving material. I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe? Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed, and shout outs to the first hand-drawn pencil drawing that I've seen here in probably 5 years. I think that's
And not to mention the lettering. Look at the font
right.
and the hand-drawn. I haven't seen those for quite some
Still
time.
learns how to letter.
Yes.
Great. Commissioner Mahan?
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Ginsburg?
Agreed, appropriate.
I agree as well. Commissioner Chen, would you like to read the motion?
In the matter LPC 26-09539, 230 Grosvenor Street, Douglaston Historic District. The application is to install awnings and noting the building style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. That the proposed retractable awnings will be seen at a secondary facade from limited vantage points on the East Drive in conjunction with adjacent detached garage and mature plantings, and will be in keeping with the residential scale and character of the building in terms of size, placement, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Douglaston Historic District.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe, would you second that? Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quembe, Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 26-05817, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1943, Lot 32, 372 Clinton Avenue in the Clinton Hill Historic District. This is an altered neo-Grec style row house designed by Robert Dixon and built in 1878. The application is to construct a 2-story rear deck.
Good afternoon, good morning, Commissioners. James Rusiello, Preservation Staff. The application is 372 Clinton Avenue, an altered neo-Grec style row house. Application is partially to legalize and correct violations, as well as to propose a double height double height balcony. Um, The rear facade, which is visible over shorter buildings on Vanderbilt Avenue, at the rear facade of this building, which was formerly a daycare center and is being converted to residential use. A fire escape that was put up in the 90s without permits, which altered the cornice and installed railings at the roof, was taken down pursuant to a permit. However, at that time, certain wall-mounted HVAC units were installed, and these windows were replaced with white painted doors. The application is to remove these wall-mounted HVAC units to the roof, remove the railing. Corrective work that is a staff level and has already been addressed is to restore the rear cornice. And the application is to legalize these wood doors by painting them dark brown. Just going to go through. So here's the visible fire escape that was removed. The top floor of the row house was, top floor window of the row house was altered by raising it a few inches with the insertion of the door. Again, the applicant is proposing to paint this door dark brown. Here are some visibility studies. And the application is to construct a double height balcony seen here.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Forgive me, I should just say, we have Agnes Muczynski, the applicant of record, with us as well for questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Doesn't look like we do. Let's go ahead and see if there's anybody in the room who would like to testify. Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Participants on Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommends approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearings are closed. Commissioner Ikumbe, would you like to start this discussion?
Commissioner, could you pause for a second while we check your mic?
Based on what the applicant is proposing, I find it to be very reasonable, and actually minimally intrusive, and actually regularizing a existing condition. So I can find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I agree as well.
Thank you. I also agree with Commissioner Ikumbe. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan? And Commissioner Goldblum? Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe, would you like to read the motion?
Yes. In the matter of LPC 26-05817, 372 Clinton Avenue, Clinton Hill Historic District, an altered neo-Grec style row house designed by Robert Dixon and built in 1878. This application is to construct a two-story rear deck. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Clinton Hill Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work at the rear facade will be seen only obliquely and incidentally from the limited vantage points of Vanderbilt Avenue over shorter buildings and will not call undue attention to itself. That the rear facade was previously altered and the modifications to shorten the bluestone lintel at the top floor does not detract from the facade composition, that the proposed two-story metal deck with picket railings at the side of the projecting bays will be simple in design and will not overwhelm the residential scale and character of the building, that the white door in the modified opening at the side of the bays accessing the new deck will be painted dark brown to harmonize with the building's existing fenestration, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Clinton Hill Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
The next time is public hearing item number 3, LPC 26-08073, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1766, Lot 26, 480 Willoughby Avenue in the Willoughby Hart Historic District. This is a neo-Gothic style row house designed by Arthur Taylor and built circa 1883, and the application is to construct a rear yard addition, alter and excavate the areaway, and replace windows.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Taylor with Higgins, Quaidwarth and Partners, Preservation Consultants. I'm here with my HQ colleagues, Drew Citrona and Ward Dennis, as well as Bianca Klein, one of the owners of 480 Willoughby Avenue. 480 Willoughby is in the Willoughby Hart Historic District, designated recently in 2024. It's a 2.5-story house built in 1883 as part of a row of 5 houses. It's very typical of this district, which consists mainly of houses predominantly built as 2 1/2 stories brownstones. The work proposed for the Commission review today includes a rear extension on the front facade, replacing the top floor windows with metal-clad windows that will match the historic configuration and operation. And in the front areaway, reconfiguring the existing cellar hatch to a usable stair. These are part of a comprehensive rehabilitation of the house that also includes work that will be reviewed at staff level, including replacement of the other windows and doors, restoration of the areaway with bluestone paving, and a new stair bulkhead and mechanical equipment at the roof, which will not be visible at the street. And that's in keeping with the proposal that, to add to the house that is oriented towards preserving the intact front facade that is characteristic of the district. Some historic photos. Again, the house dates to 1883. The earliest photo we have is the tax photo at the left. 480 is in the center. Sits between 482 at the left, which is part of a taller row, and 478 at the right is part of the same row. And so it originally was identical to 480. Sometime probably in the early 20th century, it was altered and the front facade was raised and the cornice lost. By the designation photo at right, 2024, which largely reflects the current condition. Doors and windows and some of the ironwork had been replaced, but the house remains an intact example of this row's front facades as originally built. The current block plan with existing rear extensions. The houses on the block were mostly developed in a short period of time between 1882 and 1884 on Willoughby Avenue and about 10 years later on Hart Street. Most of the houses were built with partial 1-story extensions, but around the block over time, many of these have been enlarged into full width extensions or partial extensions of 2, 3, and in a few cases, 4 stories in recent years prior to designation. So what distinguishes this district is the preponderance of 2.5-story houses, as well as the way that those houses have evolved over time. As noted in the designation report, most of the district's houses were built as 2.5-story houses, with a few exceptions that were built to a full 3 stories. By the early 20th century, many of the original 2.5 stories houses had been raised to a full 3 stories. This is clearly visible in the streetscape, where we see houses that pop up higher than their originally identical neighbors. And we can see the reason for this in the section at the left, which is the existing section of 480 and is a typical house. The top floor already has the lowest floor to ceiling height, and it gets lower in the front half as the roof slopes down. So over time, owners of these houses have sought to increase their livable space by raising the height of their top floors. Or in other cases, the attic windows have been enlarged, breaking out of the cornice, as you can see some examples in these photographs. But our proposal is to enhance the livable space instead with an enlargement at the rear, which allows the house to retain its original front facade, attic level windows, and cornice line. So existing photos of the front and rear facades. The front has a painted brownstone facade, non-historic windows and doors. The windows do not match the historic configuration. And we'll look closer in a minute at the areaway, which is heavily altered. The rear facade, the brick facade is, the brick wall is parged, has a simple typical corbelling at the top, window modifications, and you can see the existing partial rear extension. Some more details at the front, the doors within the extant wood surround, new wood doors matching the historic details will be part of the staff level review. And up at the top attic floor, these non-historic slider windows are proposed to be replaced with new metal clad windows that will match the historic configuration and operation. Again, part of the review scope today. At the front areaway, it's again heavily altered. There is a historic areaway fencing and newels, but non-historic gate, as well as this additional raised metal fencing above that. It's all non-historic concrete paving with a large CMU planter, an existing basement entry door, and some non-historic fixtures, all of which will be replaced at staff level. Looking at the roof and the rear context, you can see in this aerial view the roof of 480 at center and the way it slopes down to the front cornice, which we'll also see more clearly in the section. Existing context of rear facades and extensions, including some adjacent examples of enlarged rear extensions. Again, 482 to the right, and the row to the right is a taller row that projects slightly further into the rear yard. Views from our rear yard into the adjacent rear facades and yards. At the left is the rest of the historic row that 480 belongs to, with again some rear additions, extensions, and large ones. To the right, the adjoining row and some of the enlarged extensions of varying widths on that side. The rear facades on the block are a mix of plain brick and painted or otherwise coated facades. Looking back across the rear yard to the other side of the block, similar conditions. You can see there is one existing full height extension nearby on the other side of the block, dating from slightly before designation. So a couple of renderings of the proposed work overviews. First, the front of the house. Again, the items under review today are the windows at the top floor because they will be metal clad instead of wood. And in the areaway at left, the enlargement of the existing hatch to the cellar into an open usable stair. The areaway modification is part of an overall restoration with the removal of this large planter and the restoration of stone paving. Again, other staff review on the front facade will include replacement of the other windows to match the historic configuration and doors, and removing retaining the existing ironwork, but removing that added steel fence, and new fixtures, replacing the existing non-historic fixtures. Existing and proposed rendering of the proposed rear extension. It is a full height extension, 12 feet 5 inches deep. It's proposed to be stucco clad, which is characteristic treatment of rear facades and rear extensions on many historic row houses in the city. It will retain the characteristic top floor row of 3 windows and recreate the brick corbelling at the top of the new rear facade. There are 2 larger windows at the floor below. This reflects a desired interior plan of 2 bedrooms and their light and air requirements, and then larger openings at the lower floors with the deck and stair, typical of a row house rears. So to look more closely at the scope under review today at the front, this elevation calls out all the scope, but we'll look at these top 4 windows first. Again, these are the short windows that are part of that characteristic top half story contained within the cornice. So the historic windows were wood single light casement windows, as you can see in the historic photo here. The existing are non-historic slider windows. It's proposed to have new metal-clad wood awning windows, so these will match the historic configuration and have a similar operation. Again, the sort of what brings them to a hearing is the fact that they're metal-clad rather than wood. But we think that for a simple single-light window, the historic appearance will be very achievable in metal. If historic brick molds are found under the existing panning, they will be retained or their profile will be replicated for the new windows. If there is no evidence of the original brick molds, a typical neo-Grec profile will be integrated into the new windows. And then to the areaway, this is the existing sort of hatch opening to the basement, sort of a chute to the cellar rather. And the photo is right, is actually looking up from below in the cellar. So it's basically like a little chute with a couple of steps at the bottom. It's proposed to replace that chute with a code compliant stair. The principal purpose of this is to allow safe direct egress from the cellar. And in the rendering at left, you can see the proposed condition with the planter removed, the bluestone paving restored, and a lengthened opening and simple railing within the restored areaway. The opening extends about 10 feet from the facade, less than the 480 stoop does. So it'll be a subordinate element tucked at the side of the areaway. The newly exposed portion of the facade will be finished in a matching brownstone stucco. And these are a couple of other examples of houses in the district where the chute has been reconfigured as an open stair in one way or another. So this is something that we've seen in the district, and we think it's going to be done in a sort of tidy way as part of, again, a restoration of the overall openness of the areaway. At the bottom of the areaway would be a black metal door, not really visible from the sidewalk, but again, the existing chute and proposed stair in section here. So again, existing and proposed photo and rendering showing the existing areaway with its concrete and the big planter, and proposed with the restored paving and the stair with the simple railing. Moving back to the rear of the facade, to the rear extension, existing photo and the proposed site plan showing the extension and plan. Again, it's 12 feet 5 inches. The lots are 20 feet wide and 100 feet deep. The existing house is 20 feet by about 42 feet. At right is the plan with the extension. As you can see, it doesn't project doesn't exceed the projection of the neighboring existing extensions. And of course, it maintains a 30-foot rear yard. Just some axon views for clarity. The roof of the extension will have a usable terrace with a railing, but again, at the back, the other rooftop elements will be kept out of sight again, so that this proposal does not affect the visibility from the street. Again, the bulkhead and mechanicals that we've tested the visibility of those, so those are approvable at staff level. Elevation, I think I'll move to the section. I realize or acknowledge that full height approval, approval of full height extensions are not necessarily very commonplace at the commission. We do think in the context of this house and the constraints of its historic top floor, the strategy for an addition here is to retain the house's contribution to the historic streetscape as an original 2.5-story facade and add usable space at the rear where it will not be visible. The rear simple windows, proposed windows for the rear extension. Have plans here, I think that just illustrate this in plan form. You can see the layouts of within the extension and the windows accordingly. And I'll just conclude with the front facade. Again, this is an addition project that is oriented towards preserving the 2.5-story facade that is characteristic of the original development of the district. The windows that will return that attic level cornice to its original appearance and modify the areaway to provide egress in the context of an overall restored bluestone areaway. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, let's go ahead and move to public testimony. We have a couple people signed up to speak. And when I call your name, please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes to speak and state your name. Let's go ahead and start with Barbara Reeves.
Is this okay? Can you hear me? Okay, as you said, I'm Barbara Reeves. I've only known about this for a couple of days because I've been out of town, so I think I'm hitting it with a more emotional approach, but here I go. I'm Barbara Reeves. I've been living on Hart Street since 2008. I moved here from a loft a couple of blocks away from here, where I'd lived with 2 front windows and a skylit back for 30 years, and it was dark and stuffy. So when I moved to Hart Street, I remember being so happy to have a front and back windows with cross ventilation and a block-long corridor of yards out the back with trees, so I would have a view in either direction. I was aware of the architects and city planners from the late 1800s and their design for light and air. The push for these 2 blocks to be declared a historic district came after we, the people living on the blocks, witnessed so many attempts to change the appearance of the neighborhood. Extending the back of a building deeper than the allowed amount affects everyone. It creates unwanted shade for the neighbor on either side, and it impacts everyone else's view. It sets a precedent that we who fought for preservation are obviously against. There was a man at one of our meetings who said that he was all for the redistricting if they could only carve out his building. My question is, why does someone buy a building in a neighborhood with strict building codes when there are many other options of places to live and build in Brooklyn? Because it places the tenants that wanted the historic preservation to be living in a hyper-vigilant manner. We're always like looking around. It's uncomfortable. Also, I think it's interesting to kind of offer a trade to keep the little windows on the essentially 3rd floor as a trade for such a big build out that goes up 4 stories in the back. You know, I'd be happier if they raised the front and lowered the back. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Molly Salas.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Molly Salas, and after we designated Willoughby Hart in 2024, I became the Landmarks Liaison for the Willoughby Nostrand Marcy Historic District. As you know, this is the first public hearing for a property in the Willoughby Hart Historic District. So I think the concern of neighbors on Willoughby and Hart is just the precedent and the scale. I think that this 4-story, almost 13 feet extension, it's almost a 20% extension of the, amount of building space. As Barbara said, it will affect the light and the air and the enjoyability of the neighbors who have called this district home for many, many years. I know when I moved into my building 7 years ago, I was like, I've never seen so many trees outside my south-facing windows that look onto the back of Hart Street. And so I kind of hope that the precedent set by what's accepted here today makes what is able to be extended in Willoughby Hart for those neighbors who wish to do so an appropriate scale. And I don't think that this particular property is an appropriate scale. The preservation consultant indicated that there was some precedent of some build-outs that were of similar scale. I'd like to share with the commission that those were often done without the appropriate DOB permits or exceeded the DOB permits that were granted. There's a host of stop work orders and violations both by LPC and DOB to that effect. As well as the front areaway, one of the examples was done after designation without a permit. I find that less egregious, the areaways to the cellar, and those revisions, and I'm grateful at the sort of historic character maintenance of the front that the preservation consultants wish to preserve. I'm very, very, very grateful that the applicant and them are guiding this. However, the scale in the back is way too big. I think 1 or 2 stories would be appropriate, but certainly not 4. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly. And our last speaker that we have signed up is Michael Williams.
Good morning. My name is Michael Williams. I'm a longtime resident of Willoughby Avenue, 65 years living on the block. I see a lot of new things on the block. I love Willoughby just by being there. It's exciting to have my neighbors. That's my new neighbors. They're very nice to me. They call me the block mayor, which I love because I actually sweep the block from one side to the other side. In reference to 480, that's a beautiful building. My concern is the backyard, building that building all the way up to the top. My concern is the rainwater on the left side and right side. When there's super rain coming down from that roof, is that going to be a problem for the people on the left side and right side of that building? My problem with this building is to keep it low, not to go all the way up to the top. My next door neighbor built a bump out extension. Now, when I try to grow my vegetables in my garden, there's no sunlight. So building extensions in the backyard, it's a complete problem for me. So once again, in reference to building the backyard bump out for 480, I highly disapprove of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for testifying today. Do we have anybody else in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Participants on Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. After your name is called, you'll be promoted to panelist. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker is Emma Bartley.
Hello, this is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the proposed rear yard addition inappropriate in both height and depth. The addition is overly large and disrupts the consistent cornice line and rear yard rhythm of this fairly intact row of historic buildings. HDC urges the applicant to significantly reduce the scope of this addition by limiting it to the parlor floor, leaving the top 2 floors intact and further reducing its depth. Thank you.
The next speaker is Andrea.
Hi, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a longtime resident of Willoughby. My name is Andrea. I want to say that I just want to preface this that obviously improvements are great. We want a beautiful neighborhood and we welcome that. But as Molly had stated, this is a pretty significant reconfiguration. And I would say it's really structural. And I think that structural walls being removed like on multiple levels, I would say that that's an overdevelopment. And the concern for that is really, well, some of the things that I agree out of what everyone spoke of, but a big concern is the basement. There's a 20-foot extension of the basement. Excavating and deepening that basement, as we all know, like with these attached row houses, that's like a real structural risk. They share walls. And all of this digging has in the past in our blocks here, we have seen some of the consequences, and it's been destabilizing some of the adjacent buildings. So I fear that will happen. We've seen it leading to like cracks, vibration damage, debris. We haven't even talked about that. And so that is really going to impact the entire neighborhood, but also impact very directly the adjacent buildings. So that's my first concern. I want to echo what Michael has said about the drainage. I want to see drainage. I am next door, so this will directly affect me. What's the drainage look like? We lowering that basement floor, it's going to increase the groundwater exposure, and there's flood vulnerability on this block when it rains for heavy rain that we've experienced in basements. So where is that drain? I also I think I want to emphasize what Barbara had mentioned about the sunlight. So I am right next door, and I also want to mention that isometric rendering, I find it a little bit false in the sense of, that the presenter kind of showed like an isometric existing rendering, and I live on 482, and right now that building is almost flush to 480, so it doesn't stick out all the way, and also we don't have an extension on all floors. The only thing that you'll see is actually a second floor that has an open deck. So I just want to kind of call that out because my concern is really about that sunlight as well in the backyard. If it goes that far back, I lose sun, and I'm not even on the ground floor. I mean, I'm losing sun on the technically the third floor, and I just want to preface this by saying that the front part of this building, we don't get any direct sun. So my only direct sun is actually behind in the backyard.
All right, we are at
in
the
all those
3-minute
windows.
limit. We're going to move to the next speaker, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evelyn Collier. I'll be promoting you to panelist.
Unmute. Okay. Start the video. Okay. Good morning. My name is Evelyn Collier. I am representing Community Board 3. I am Chair of the Landmark and Preservation Committee, and I'd like to read the committee comments in reference to 480 Willoughby. The scope of work for this proposed reservation include the following. It was to demolish an existing rear facade and construct a new full height rear facade and 12-foot deep building extension with a 7-foot to 9-foot deep hollow floor deck and stair to the garden. Is to install a 9-foot tall bulkhead on the roof, remove an existing coal hatch in front of the building, and replace access with new open stairs. Provide bluestone pavers. The existing cellar is not included in the extension, to which is to have a slab or grade foundation. New historic top floor elevation windows are not included in the application. Committee comments. The full height 12-foot deep extension is too large. Railings for the roof deck should be set back. The proposed bulkhead is too large and is not typical of the area. 479 Willoughby Avenue, used as a reference, was built before the 2024 LPC historic designation, hence was not approved by LPC. Open straight stairs in the front areaway and are inconsistent with other nearby properties. Garden level access with the light and wide step are not consistent with neighboring properties. Vibration monitorings and other protection of adjacent property must be submitted along with structural engineering details. In summary, the proposed 9-foot bulkhead and the full height 12-foot deep rear yard extension is too much and too large. Therefore, be it resolved, Brooklyn Community Board 3 objects to the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for this proposed alteration at 480 Willoughby Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. Thank you. Evelyn Collier.
Thank you. The next speaker is Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, we have no objection to the change from the in-swinging windows to awning windows in the attic, although we think that all primary facade windows in row houses should be painted wood and not metal clad. However, the other two components of this application are not appropriate. The cellar stair at the front of the areaway will be very obvious and is an unusual configuration for a row house. The necessary fence running perpendicular to the facade exacerbates this problem. Now, at the rear, the addition should not extend the full length of the house. This will destroy the relationship between this house and other houses in the row. It will also destroy the decorative brick cornice. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Anyone else joining via Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that LPC also received letters from 2 individuals recommending denial.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to some of the comments?
Yes, please. Thank you. Just want to clarify a couple of things. First of all, there is, as you can see in the existing and proposed section in the presentation, there is no proposed additional excavation of the basement or cellar, as one person contended. Again, the rooftop bulkhead, which was mentioned by the community board, does meet rules for staff level approval. So it's not really part of the hearing scope today. With regard to, I also just want to clear up any confusion. There was a mention of the idea of purchasing a house and exceeding building restrictions. Do want to make clear that the addition is as of right under zoning. Also, the house was purchased 14 years ago, so it was certainly purchased before it was a designated district. Certainly drainage is, of course, a legitimate concern, and obviously a proper drainage system will be part of the DOB review of the extension. We do believe that in this relatively spacious open yard, the 12-foot added depth, retaining a 30-foot yard beyond that, will still maintain a lot of open area in the rear. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, then let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that? Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. I just want to note a couple things. First of all, Landmarks does not regulate light and air. And I want to say, in terms of the Willoughby Hart Historic District, as one of the speakers mentioned, this is the first commission level application that we've had for this new historic district. So during the designation process, we actually heard from many of the property owners about their need to expand their homes to address family needs. At the time, Chair Carroll acknowledged this concern and noted that we understood their need and that we would work with them to accommodate that consistently with Landmarks law. So given that, Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure, thanks. I remember that process quite well. I remember that statement by Sarah. And I think that, as the first out of the gate, this project does have a certain importance to it, as it does kind of set the path for how folks should look at it. I think that the applicant made a tactical error here. I mean, the argument was, we're going to not touch the front, so we'll touch the back in a way that you never permit, or you rarely permit. I think that was a mistake. I mean, if you look at the streetscape supports a higher front, especially with a mansard, which we've approved many times before. I think that the distinctive cornice is noteworthy and attractive, and it's lovely if they want to keep it. But I think that the adjacent buildings certainly show modifications that could support changes. I think that our precedents in other places would support that. I think that the notion of putting a full-height rear yard addition on a block that has mostly 1- and 2-story additions, just not the way to go. I think it sets a bad precedent for the district, and I think that I don't think it's acceptable. But I think I could accept this at 2 stories, which is, if you look at the block plan, that's kind of how the rest of the block is developed for the most part. I don't think I could accept full height.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, I too appreciate the heightened scrutiny, you might say, given to this application, as it's the first public hearing for this relatively new historic district. And, so I appreciate all the public testimony and the neighbors coming out and speaking. That being said, the commission does regularly approve rear yard additions in other historic districts that are, have very similar morphology to the block and of row houses that we find here. And so there's well-established precedent, that neighbors and homeowners can find, in many other historic districts. And that precedent, is generally to approve, allow rear yard additions, but not full height. And accordingly, I think that the rear yard addition here should be reduced by 1 floor. I'm okay with the proposals at the front, including the stair and the new wood metal clad windows at the top. I think they're both functional and minimally invasive and improve an existing condition. I'm okay with those.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with my fellow commissioners. The rear yard addition should be reduced by 1 floor. Ideally, the window fenestration on the floor below should have 3 windows instead of 2. I realize with how they're dividing up the space into 2 bedrooms, that may be difficult, but ideally, I'd like to see that too.
Thank you. I am also going to speak. I agree with Commissioner Mahan. I think that the windows on the front facade, the top windows, are fine. The excavation on the front is fine. The rear yard addition, I think, is a little bit too aggressive here, and I could find it appropriate if they reduced it by 1 floor. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the statement. I think as Michael pointed out, this is this is a unusual way to do in the rear, and I think that I agree with the commission members that it should be reduced.
Okay, Commissioner Kumbe?
I am okay with what is being proposed for the front facade. As for the rear facade, I believe that it should be reduced by 1 floor, and as Commissioner Ginsburg has stated, that the fenestration arrangement on that rear facade be restudied.
So Commissioner Goldblum, are you
I can
1 floor? Okay. So would you like to read the motion?
Sure.
And ask them to, maybe work with staff and take a look at the fenestration?
Sure.
Thank you.
Regarding 480 Willoughby Avenue in the Willoughby Heart Historic District, the application is to construct a rear yard addition, alter and excavate the areaway and replace windows. I note the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Willoughby Heart Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed rear yard addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfares, that the rear yard addition will not project farther into the rear yard than other rear yard additions at neighboring houses, or diminish the central green space, that the design, materiality of the rear yard addition featuring punched openings, stucco cladding, cast stone lintels and sills, and a dentelated cornice and a metal deck will be in keeping with the design and materiality of rear additions and secondary facades at other buildings of a similar age, type, and style within the historic district. That the proposed work at the areaway and the replacement of attic windows will not damage or eliminate any significant features of the building or site. That the excavation of a portion of their areaway to improve cellar access at the existing hatch and stairs will be consistent with the alterations to enlarge access stairs within areaways at buildings of this age, type, and style within the historic district, and that the black finished metal areaway railings will be simple in design and in keeping with metalwork found at other areas in the historic district. That the black finished solid metal door at the cellar level will be only minimally visible from public thoroughfare, and that the proposed black finished metal clad wood single light awning windows will match historic windows in terms of configuration, details, and finish. And that the proposed change in operation from casement to awning will only be perceptible when the windows are open, and that the proposed change in material from wood to metal clad wood will not be perceptible when viewed from public thoroughfares. However, I recommend that the applicant work with the staff to reduce the height of the rear yard addition by 1 floor and to modify the design of the rear addition's top floor windows to conform with a 3 across pattern.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
6 in favor and none opposed. The motion passes.
That's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Right, the next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 26-08279, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1218, Lot 45, 140 West 88th Street in the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. This is a Renaissance Revival style row house designed by Neville and Bagg and built in 1894. And the application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions and reconstruct the rear facade.
All right, good morning, everyone. Our proposal is for a penthouse and occupiable roof addition, as well as a new rear extension for 140 West 88th Street project. It's an existing 3-story plus cellar and basement brownstone in Upper West Side. There's a series of identical row houses in this neighborhood adjacent to us. We are not going to touch the existing front facade. We will restore it and replace the windows in kind, but that is filed under separate application for staff level approval. The presentation is about the penthouse extension and the rear extension. The block plan shows the height conditions around the block. 140 West is shown with its proposed penthouse and bulkhead extension, and you'll see in light orange the sort of the 4th story heights around the block, as well as the red with bulkheads. The block at our property side has partial rear extensions, and some of the buildings have gone full width with these extensions, and some of them remain as partial. This is the 3D view, just to give a better idea of the height conditions around the block. The dark gray is our property. From the other side of the block, basically the street view aerial version. This is just to sort of put our building in context around the block with different heights of buildings that we see both from the rear and from the front. Some of the buildings have 4th stories already as part of their original, and some of the buildings have added, I believe prior to the designation, additional stories to it. This is the existing pictures of our building. It's the orange one. Again, we will restore the front facade and replace the windows, but this is filed under separate application. This elevation shows the front view of our proposal with the additional penthouse, railing, and bulkhead. We are sinking the penthouse into the top floor with the roof assembly. So it's only, you can see it's only partially shown in the elevation. Some of our details, you'll see on the top left, the cornice detail. The front existing cornice will remain and will sink the penthouse floor in and keep the front facade as is and create a high parapet at this area. This is the front 3D views of our proposed penthouse and bulkhead extension, and you can sort of see clearly how we are sinking into the penthouse. The existing and proposed building sections, along with the axons of the volumes we are adding. The rear extension we are keeping at its existing projection. It's already 30 feet from the rear property line. We are just extending it to the full width. The penthouse and the bulkhead extensions are shown here at the top. This is the mock-up we have done. It's currently on site. The right side of the mock-up is the front street-facing side, and we have the bulkhead front facade also mocked up for street view visibility, and the left side is the rear. Another view of the mock-up from the opposite side. So the bulkhead and penthouse visibility around the block, they are not visible at any point except one specific vantage point where you'll see the red 1 and 2 numbers. At that specific point, you can see the top of the bulkhead, not the penthouse, very slightly, and the maximum visibility is shown here. The top of the bulkhead will be covered with medium bronze coping, so it will look like this color. So I'll say similar to what you see in this render up here. Other than the specific point, penthouse and bulkhead are not visible from any point. This is the existing rear extension of the building. The rear facade is in decaying condition. Nobody really has touched this building for over 30, 40 years. So our proposed extension is to demolish the existing 3-story extension and widen it in full width. And we will keep the top floor of the rear facade as is above the rear extension. We will restore it, meaning we will remove the stucco layer and expose the brick. The existing corbelled brick at top will remain, and the existing window and door openings will remain and will be replaced with new window and door. This is the elevation of our proposed rear extension and rear facade. You can see the 3-story extension is shown here. The existing fourth floor we are keeping is shown as here, and the penthouse and bulkhead above. This shows how we are planning to keep the existing rear 4th story. Existing and proposed elevations shown. We will replace the existing double hung window with a casement window. Currently, the lintels are not exposed, and looking around the block to the adjacent neighbors, it seems like lintels were painted in all sorts of colors. So we will evaluate the condition of the lintels once we get to the restoration point, and if they're in good condition, we will keep. If not, we will replace in kind with the same material. The proposed window assemblies for the rear extension, we have a double height space, a large fixed window with swing door assembly, and we are proposing casement windows for the façadable. This is the rendering of the rear extension. We have a magnolia tree in this property, which is very special, and we want to sort of play on that with our proposed lintel and sill and parapet coping stone to have a similar sort of color to it. The existing brick of the fourth floor is shown here, and we have a new brick that's in line with the brick of the neighbors and the properties around. Views. More views of the rear from the rear facade, rear yard level. Proposed materials, the penthouse cladding, along with the coping in general, will be medium bronze color, as shown in the renders. Our proposed brick, new brick is here, and our proposed lintel and window sill stone is shown here. These are some of the proposed plans. Just to give a context, we are renovating this building to be a single family residence. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, did you have a question?
Yeah, since the only visibility of your proposed addition from the street is of the top corner of the bulkhead, would it be possible to slope the roof of the bulkhead and thus eliminate the visibility of that corner altogether?
We have a skylight at the bulkhead. I'll go to the front.
Right.
That's why
Can't put a skylight on a sloped roof?
we can. It would be we drop the ceiling height to the bare minimum at the bulkhead to limit this visibility. We can slope the front bulkhead roof, but the skylight you'll see in the proposed section is coming almost at the border of it,
Right.
aligning with the stair sort of opening below. So we can slope it and shrink the skylight. It will just sort of not maximize the light you will get from the stair hall.
Good, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Two questions. First of all, what's the floor to ceiling height in the penthouse?
The floor to ceiling height of the penthouse is 10 feet.
Okay. And the second issue is you can do sloped skylights, but you could also put windows on the walls to bring light into that stair with the slope.
Yes. And I'll clarify, the penthouse ceiling height is 10 feet and the bulkhead ceiling height currently is 6'8".
Right. The bulkhead, I'm not questioning. I saw that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, let's see if there's anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item. Is there anybody here who would like to speak? Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Elizabeth Lee to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Historic District Council.
Hello, this is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC is concerned by the proposed rear yard facade reconstruction and addition. The filling in of the existing rear yard tooth disrupts the established rhythm and articulation of the block's rear facades, where these voids create a consistent pattern across the row. HDC's review committee felt the complete infill of this space reads as overly blunt. HDC thus asks if the applicant could explore design strategies that could retain or reinterpret the articulation of the existing tooth, such as using recessed or glazing elements similar to what is seen on a neighboring building on drawing number 115, so that the addition better acknowledges the established rhythm of the block's rear facades. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Megan Fitzpatrick.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. While our Certificate of Appropriateness Committee does not find the proposal overtly offensive, we believe it misses certain opportunities to better reflect the building's historic character. We understand work on the front facade is filed separately. However, we hope this work includes the removal of paint and the restoration of the brownstone to match its row. On the rear, we recommend adding lintels to the 3 proposed third floor rear windows to match the other existing and proposed window detailing. In addition, the proposed planter seems unnecessary. Its location is too close to the roof edge and material is too similar to the original landmark. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Ward 7 recommends approval.
Thank you. Would you like to address any of the comments?
Yes. So starting with the rear extension comment, I just want to point out that there is already a building here that has done a similar proposal to us with a penthouse and bulkhead and a full story rear extension. So I will argue that the pattern of these partial extensions at the block was already broken by this building. That's just a precedent we had. For the front facade restoration, yes, we will restore the front facade fully with rebrownstoning. And I will also note that my client, Jonathan, who is here, has restored 2 buildings down, this building you see over here, previously, and we are proposing to do the same. So full facade restoration, window replacement in kind. The lintel comment on the 3rd floor rear, we have no problem with that. And I will also mention that we were told that we were proposing planters up here where we have a 3-foot setback for our new penthouse extension as a DOB requirement. We were covering this setback with planters, but they were freestanding since this is such a narrow area and it's not occupiable. We removed the planters as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Yeah. I have 2 comments. One is, I think that the penthouse, you could lower by a foot, which would help visibility, and that you also could slope the front of the stair bulkhead. So between those 2 things, you'd be able to get the work to not be visible from the street. And with those changes, I can support this and find this appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, I agree. The visibility is so close to non-existent that seems a very easy lift to get it to be completely non-visible. I'd leave it to the applicant as to how to accomplish that, but there are certainly multiple routes to doing so. I'm okay with extending the width of the existing rear yard addition. That seems reasonable. And I'm okay with the rooftop addition as well, given the existence of other rooftop additions and its lack of any visibility.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Kumbe?
I agree as well. There can be some work done too.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I agree as well.
Thank you. I also agree with your comments. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to read the motion?
With regards to LPC 26-08-279-140 West 88th Street, Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. A Renaissance Revival style townhouse designed by Neville and Bagg and built in 1894. Application is to construct a rooftop and rear yard addition and reconstruct the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the rear yard addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, that other rear yard additions with similar height and depth exist within the block, and that the proposed 3-story rear yard addition will be modest in scale and will not overwhelm the building, adjacent buildings, or the block's central green space. That the rear yard addition will not rise to the full height of the building, thereby preserving the sense of the building's original form and fenestration as part of the row. That the proposed material and design of the rear yard addition, featuring brick and cast stone lintels and sills of new window openings, single pane windows and double height windows, and door assembly at the bottom 2 floors, will be in keeping with the scale and residential character of rear yard facades found within the block and the historic district, and that the proposed rooftop addition will be set back from the front and rear facades, maintaining a sense of the building's original scale. That the standing seam siding on the front and rear facades, stucco siding on the side facades and bulkhead, and simple fenestration of the rooftop addition will be in keeping with the character of the rooftop additions within the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. That the cumulative effect of the rooftop and rear yard addition will not overwhelm the building or the row, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the historic district. However, I find that portions of the bulkhead at the top of the rooftop addition will be visible from West 88th Street above the neighboring row houses. Therefore, I recommend that the design of the bulkhead be modified and that any visible railings or parapets at the rooftop addition be adjusted to eliminate the visibility of the West 88th Street, from the West 88th Street.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved. With modifications, please continue to work with staff. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
All right, I'm going to read 2 items in at one time. They're being presented together, although they're separate applications, I believe, under separate ownership. First is public hearing item number 5, LPC 26-09397. This is an application for a transfer of development rights. It's in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1413, Lot 124, 159 East 78th Street, the 159 East 78th Street House Individual Landmark. This is a vernacular Italianate-style row house built in 1861, and the application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding the continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution. And public hearing item number 6, LPC 26-09379, also an application for a transfer of development rights in the Borough of Manhattan. This is Block 1413, Lot 25, 161 East 78th Street, the 161 East 78th Street house individual landmark. A vernacular Italianate style row house built in 1861. Application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding the continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution.
Commissioners, before we start, I just wanted to review, to summarize the conditions that staff have asked the applicants to meet and to clarify the issues before you. First, as you know, the intent behind the adoption of 7542 is to liberalize the use of transferable development rights from individual landmarks, especially in lower density areas, to make them easier and less expensive to transfer. Second, in furtherance of that goal, 7542 requires only that LPC send a report to the chair of the City Planning Commission that a continuing maintenance program exists. There's no requirement that the transfer serve a, quote, preservation purpose, unquote, nor is a review of where the development rights land. Third, LPC approved continuing maintenance programs have two parts. There is upfront restoration and maintenance work based on an existing conditions report that is needed to bring the building up to a specific level of repair and restoration. There's also the obligation to implement a cyclical maintenance program every 7 to 10 years, depending on the type of building, to maintain the condition of the building, which involves a periodic inspection, identification of work, and the obligation to perform that work. Because the goal of 7542 is to make it easier to transfer development rights, especially in lower density districts where both the amount of transferable rights and their value is less, the staff has proposed that the initial restoration and maintenance work be less than the first class condition used historically in 7479 and 74711 applications. Generally speaking, first class condition requires that all missing significant architectural elements, such as cornices, windows, and storefronts, are restored, inappropriate alterations eliminated, and the building cleaned up. Instead, we have recommended the standard be in between good condition, which is the minimum the law requires, and means keeping the building structurally sound and watertight, and generally maintaining the exterior architectural features that existed at the time of designation, and first-class condition. We have termed this sound condition, and we're happy to take under advisement a new name for that.
Sound condition.
Sound condition is defined by us as identifying missing significant architectural features, again, a cornice or windows, inappropriate repairs, and depending on the cost relative to the value of the transfer, restoring or fixing some or all of them. To support the continuing maintenance program, we propose that an applicant put 10% of the gross revenue of the transfer into a dedicated account that will fund the program into the future. It is important to note that an owner is obligated to continue implementing the continuing maintenance program even after the dedicated account is exhausted. The continuing maintenance plan requires yearly reports detailing how funds from the account have been used. I also want to note that the obligation to undertake the cyclical maintenance program is perpetual, but applicants in the past have objected, noting that it is a burdensome obligation. Staff is exploring making the cyclical obligation subject to a term of years or a minimum number of maintenance cycles, but for now, the obligation is perpetual. Finally, for purposes of these two applications, as you will see, staff have recommended that additional restoration work be required for the buildings to achieve a sound condition. And with that, I guess we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Mark. Very helpful. Good morning. Sarah Scher, Higgins, Quaysbarth and Partners. And we are the historic preservation consultants for the individual owners of 159 East 78th Street and 161 East 78th Street, located on the north side of East 78th Street between Lexington and 3rd Avenue. As both Corey and Mark mentioned, the proposal before you today is establishing a continuing maintenance program for both properties to facilitate the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution. And Deirdre Carson from Greenberg Traurig is here to answer any questions as they come up. So both of these houses were designated as individual landmarks in 1968. They are both 2.5-story brick houses with brownstone trim that were speculatively developed in 1861 by a painter named John Turner and a builder named Henry Armstrong. The whole row of speculative development includes 157 to the west or the left, and then also 163 and 165 East 78th Street to the east or to the right in this photo. Mark explained this very well, but this is a new section of the zoning resolution that was introduced as part of City of Yes, and this allows individual landmarks to more easily transfer their development rights to both to a broader area around the site and without having to go through the ULURP process. It also, from a landmarks perspective, only requires the establishment of a continuing maintenance plan, which allows smaller landmarks, such as these individual homes, to relieve themselves of their excess development rights. Each house has about 4,200 square feet of excess development rights, and the market rate for development rights right now is approximately $400 per square foot. So here are our earliest photos of the houses, a 1929 photo on the left and a 1930 photo on the right. As I mentioned, these were all speculatively developed, and as they were sold off to individual homeowners, some changes happened in a consistent way, such as the removal of the stoops, which are all gone by this time, and some in different ways, such as window configurations and treatment at the base. We can see in both of these photos that by the time of 1929, the brownstone trim was painted a light color. Here are the two tax photos for 159 and 161 East 78th Street, which we'll look at in more detail adjacent to the existing conditions. And then just the photo between the 1940 tax photo and a 1979 Landmarks Preservation Commission photo showing some changes that had taken place, such as a PTAC unit that had been installed at 159 and flower boxes that had been installed at 161. So first starting with 159 East 78th Street, looking at the tax photo adjacent to the existing conditions. The house is relatively intact from the 1940 photo. Looks like the sidewalk might have been raised so that the door is at grade, and we're seeing more of the bluestone water table. There was a light fixture above the entrance door that has been removed, and there's a scar from that there. Looking at the masonry conditions, so that scar from the lantern, the light fixture is on the top right, so you can see the brownstone underneath. This will be repaired as part of the work. Top left, we have some mortar that is incompatible with the older brick. It's both too hard, causing the brick to spall, and is also smeared over the front of the brick, which also causes some technical issues. There's some minor delamination of the bluestone water table seen on the bottom left. And then on the bottom right, that's the area of the PTAC unit with some replacement brick showing earlier repairs of the building. The windows are in fair condition, though there is some glazing failure, which you can see most clearly in the center. So you're seeing the air going in between the insulated glazing units. And then the wood cornice at the top of the house is in good condition. At the back, there is a 1983 LPC approved rear yard extension, which is in very good condition, the windows and the masonry. The bottom floor is currently being replaced with new infill, so that's why this site is under construction, and we have photos from the adjacent yards, this one from 157 and this one on the right from 161. So the proposed work is selective brick replacement where brick is cracked or spalled, brick patching where there's just embeds that have been removed and there can be minor repairs. There's a little bit of existing paint from the brick surfaces that will be removed. Incompatible mortar that we saw before will be removed and repointed with a softer, more compatible mortar to match existing. Patching brownstone trim where necessary, repainting areas of missing or flaking paint at the brownstone trim, and then the front facade window replacement has already been approved by Landmark staff for new wood windows to match historic in configuration, operation, and details. Going now to 161 East 78th Street. There were these very densely gridded multi-light windows that had been replaced from the original over time that were in the 1940 photo. Landmarks had approved a simplified version of those windows that more relates to the historic row, which we see on the right. We also see that in the 1940 photo, the base was painted a white color, and that has been stripped over time, and there's new gates at the door. And the flower boxes had been installed by that 1979 landmarks photo that we saw. So here are some details at the basement level. Again, there's some mortar that is very hard compared to the brick, which is causing the spalling in between the two windows of the basement. This will all be rebuilt with new brick and repointed with sensitive mortar. All these houses likely originally had a porch across between the parlor and the second floor. And so on both houses, you can see an area of replacement brick at that area. So we have detailed photos of that. The windows are in very good condition and are wood. And these are some existing condition photos. And then the wood cornice is also in good condition. At the roof, there is some water infiltration, which we can see at the front and rear terraces, the leftmost photo, the rightmost photo. You can see around the edge, there's water deterioration. And then on the paving on the right side, you can see biological growth coming in between the wood planks. And then in the center photo, there is water damage at the penthouse roof. So all of this roofing will be removed, re-waterproofed, and then new paving installed. And then repairs to the roof at the penthouse as well. And then at the rear, there's a 2003 approved rear extension to this house, and the brick and windows are in excellent condition and no work is required. So the proposed restoration scope is very similar to 159 and includes brick repair and replacement, removing any existing paint from brick surfaces, removing incompatible mortar, repointing where required, patching brownstone trim where necessary, repainting areas of missing or flaking paint at the brownstone trim, and then re-waterproofing the penthouse roof terraces and roof and replacing the decking. And then the continuing maintenance plan, 20% of the proceeds of the deal will go into an escrow account for the initial phase of work. And then every 10 years, an inspection would occur, and 10% of the proceeds will be in an escrow to accommodate that work as needed in perpetuity. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, did you have a question?
Yeah, in your scope of work, is the area of where the PTAC was included in the brick replacement?
Only bricks that are cracked, but it's not, there's no replacement just for aesthetic purposes, only bricks that are failing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners? Oh, Corey?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, just so it's clear for everyone on that question that Commissioner Goldblum just raised. The staff had made 2 recommendations for additional work, and as the applicant noted, the only brick replacement is for spalled or cracked brick, not for cosmetic. And so the 2 areas that were pointed out that you can see in this photo between the parlor floor and the second floor, it's roughly 1 foot tall, several courses of brick, where there's different replacement brick between the 2 buildings that are generally not a great match to the existing brick. Those are not proposed in this current scope to be replaced. Those are proposed to be retained. So that was one of the staff's recommendation, and I think that would apply to the former air conditioning unit location as well. The second staff recommendation had to do with the paint. As you can see in the photos, there is a white paint installed on many of the sort of brownstone features on both facades of these 2 buildings. And also the third building to the left, but I think not on the pair of buildings to the right. There's, looking at the historic photographs, kind of a mixed history with regard to the presence of paint being on some of these features, even as far back as the tax photos, but certainly not original to the building. And I think, as everyone knows, in many cases, paints and coatings can cause further damage to underlying masonry. Not always the case, but often the case. So that was the other recommendation by the staff.
Thank you.
May I respond to that or no?
No, we're still going to take testimony. Do you want to respond right now, or do you want to wait until we have all the comments? Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So let's go ahead and move to public testimony. We have somebody signed up to speak. We have Zainab Turan.
Vice Chair Master, Commissioners, my name is Zainab Turan, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends Preservation Committee appreciates the restorative work and the proposed continuing maintenance program intended to safeguard these two landmark row houses. However, because owners of landmark buildings are already legally obligated under the 1965 Landmarks Law to maintain their properties, quote unquote, in good repair, we urge the Commission to establish a more rigorous and enforceable preservation framework with higher standards, such as requiring new windows to match the historic wood material and painted finish. These additional protections are especially warranted given the substantial financial benefit the owners stand to realize through the sale of their air rights. The committee also requests clear oversight and accountability measures regarding the proposed allocation of 10% proceeds to fund the continuing maintenance program. Specifically, we seek clarification regarding which entity will be responsible for monitoring ongoing compliance with the maintenance program and what reporting and enforcement mechanisms will be established to ensure adherence to these obligations, and which authority will have the power to impose penalties or corrective actions should owners fail to meet program requirements. Friends believe that these critical policy issues should be resolved, not only for the present application, but also to establish meaningful standards and precedents for all future TDR's proposals involving landmark properties. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Zainab. Noting that there isn't anybody else in the room, let me turn it over to Elizabeth Lee to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society. Now, this testimony was written before the hearing, but I'm going to read it as is. So this application shows us what happens when Landmarks Commission becomes complicit in promoting New York's real estate industry. The transfer of development rights requested will increase the likelihood that an outsized new development on an adjacent corner. Now, this development will result in the demolition of 3 mid-19th century row houses, one of which retains considerable historic facade detail. It may cause loss of affordable housing. It will result in a building even larger than allowed by zoning, looming above the adjacent individual landmarks and further degrading their human scale context. Now, in exchange for this, the owners of the landmarks will receive a large sum of money. Only a tiny fraction of this, 10%, we're told, will be set aside for future maintenance. There is no mechanism to ensure compliance, that identified work will actually be undertaken, or that the 10% set aside will be adequate to the task. And the landmark law already requires designated buildings to be maintained in good repair. This cyclical maintenance plan adds little to this requirement. The new zoning eliminates the requirement that the landmark be brought to sound first-class condition. There appears to be no maintenance to ensure that any restoration work will be undertaken, and the quality of the restoration work proposed is subpar. For example, the new windows should match the wood material of the painted finish on historic windows. Now, we understand that the Commission has been receiving many similar applications. We also understand that LPC is considering allowing staff to approve these without commissioner or public involvement, and we object to that. It's important that the Commission and the public be kept aware of the effects of these kinds of applications on landmarks and the built environment. Now, we wonder whether this flawed zoning change was enacted with the concurrence of the Commission, over the Commission's objections, or without any consultation at all. But the effect is that the Commission is seen as playing the developer's game with the public good and historic preservation left behind. Add to this, the public's frustration with the lack of transparency of the designation process and the scarcity of individual interior and historic district designations over many years, and public support will continue to erode. Thank you, commissioners.
The next speaker will be the Historic Districts Council.
Hello, this is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. As applications of this type become more common, HDC believes it is critical that the Commission establish a clear and enforceable framework to ensure that transfer of development right agreements produce enforceable continuing maintenance plans for landmark buildings, excuse me. In agreement with our colleagues at Friends of the Upper East Side, we are taking this opportunity to urge the Commission to require stronger oversight and accountability measures with the proposed maintenance program, including clear identification of the entity responsible for monitoring compliance, the reporting and enforcement mechanisms that will be used, and the authority empowered to impose corrective actions should obligations not be met. We also agree that because owners of landmark properties are already legally required to maintain their buildings in good repair, any additional preservation commitments tied to financially valuable development right transfers should be especially rigorous, transparent, and enforceable. Finally, given the precedent these arrangements may establish for future landmark-related transfers, HDC also agrees that applications of this type should continue to receive commissioner and public review, as opposed to being delegated solely to staff level approval. These applications raise broader policy questions about long-term stewardship, enforcement, and the evolving relationship between development right transfers and preservation obligations that warrant continued public oversight. Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to the comments?
Sure. There was one comment in the testimony that I think just requires some clarification about the windows. So 159 East 78th Street staff did approve replacing the windows, but that is because they were new wood windows that match the historic configuration and the historic finish, and staff can approve restorative work at individual landmarks. So it's not that the part of this application as restorative scope is being reviewed by staff, it's just they happen to be proposing windows that met staff rules. I also note that while being a landmark requires you to be in a certain level of condition, there's no inspection process that can be facilitated with there being over 38,000 landmarks in the city. So the benefit of this is that every 10 years there will be an inspection, and especially with buildings of this scale that are too short to require a FISP repair, it's definitely a benefit to have somebody come out every 10 years to do a thorough inspection of all aspects of the buildings to ensure that they are in sound condition. Then I also note that this is a relatively small transaction compared to the transactions that you have reviewed in the past. It's just 4,200 square feet per house. That's why we sort of had to frame the work that was done at the houses to make sure that it is in sound condition. And we feel that the paint, which has been on the stone trim since that 1929 photo, does not appear to be impacting the masonry's condition, and that the issues of the infill brick is not visually. We don't find it very, while these photos are very zoomed in, if you step back from the houses, they are beautiful and in good condition, and we did not feel that it warranted replacement as part of this proposal. That is it.
Thank you. Commissioners, did we have any final questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
Could you talk a little bit about the enforcement process?
Sure, I was going to make a comment. Just so everyone's clear and the record's clear, the commission, there's an agreement in the continuing maintenance obligation. The commission is the enforcer of these agreements. The commission can bring claims against the applicant. There are fines if continuing maintenance reports aren't filed. And we can compel the work if it's not done. So I'm not sure why there's any confusion about who would be enforcing them. The commission has always enforced them. We've always been the party that's done so. I would also just note that the historically, transfer of development rights has served two purposes. One is to compensate individual landmarks for the restricted development on their property, because unlike within historic districts, most of them are not, they don't benefit from, you know, nearby restrictions on their neighbors. And secondly, the commission has never required that every dollar every dollar of these transactions be put into a maintenance account or used solely to benefit the landmark. Indeed, for the transfers out of Grand Central, historically, going back to the 80s, they're at 5% of the overall value of the transfers. So, you know, the conditions that I described are very much in line, if not more stringent than they have been in the past. And, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And just following up,
Yeah.
that those obligations follow the property irrespective of the owner. Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg?
And Mark, my understanding is the Grand Central case that allowed us to proceed partially was based on the ability to transfer the air rights.
That's correct.
Thank
And the
you.
commission has long been in favor of you know, allowing development rights to be transferred further afield from than they were under 7479, precisely because it wasn't very useful. There were in most cases there weren't receiving sites that could take these sites.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Mahan, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this discussion?
Thank you. Yes. I think it's really, really important that the commission has this tool to give to property owners. I think it's you know, when we hear about people who oppose designation, and you know, which is not infrequent. You know, think about the Willoughby site we just saw. It's all about how it's a burden to own a landmark building. It's a burden, it's a restriction, it devalues the property, none of which are really supported by facts, but that doesn't stop people from thinking that way, and from the public thinking that way, and from the people in government thinking that way. And I think it's really, really important that we find tools to facilitate, to make people who own landmark buildings feel like it's not all stick and that there's some carrot. And especially at a time when we're trying to find ways to develop new housing, you know, and when we can't always allow for the maximum FAR within historic districts for our own reasons, I think the ability to transfer those air rights out and monetize your property is good. So I think it's great that the commission has come up with new standards for this, and I think that the standard that Mark articulated was the right one. You know, it shouldn't rise to the level of a 74-711, where we require a Class A level work, but it should also be above what everybody else has to do. I think that's the right place, and as we go through these, I think we'll define more carefully what that means. And so I think in light of that, I think looking at today's application is an interesting place to start. You have a couple of buildings that are in pretty good shape. I think that the comments that Corey made about the modifications that the staff suggested are good ones, and I think we should follow those. I think that that relates to the painted surface of the brownstone, which is not an aesthetic comment, but is an ongoing maintenance comment. And the replacement of the front facade bricks that are mismatched and the bad pointing, I think that's not an undue burden to place on them that would result in a slight improvement to the building that would be aesthetic in nature, but seems to feel right in terms of its fit relative to that spectrum of normal to A class. I can support that.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
Thank you. I believe these maintenance plans are, a great idea. It's just another tool and avenue to make sure that we are keeping our landmarks in the best condition that they possibly can be in. And because of that, I'm also in agreement with the staff comments in which we should look at including the patch brickwork on the facade as well as the painted brownstone removal.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, and just to follow up what Michael Goldblum, what Mark was just talking about, I think this is a very important process for us. And I think this is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. And I think that given especially, all the other landmarks that are in need of repair and trying to do the upkeep, the struggle, and we see it on a weekly basis. I think that this is a tool, and I think obviously more needs to be examined in the future about the process and the monitoring of these maintenance agreements and the cyclical and whether it's how many years, and I think will be for future discussions. But in general, I agree with the statements.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Goldblum, and I appreciate what he said and how he said it. I think you articulated very well, the use of these TDRs, a relatively new tool for us. And we're, I agree that with his comments about, and the staff comments about the mismatched bricks in the front, and then the removing of the painting. The other thing I just wanted to add is that we're also cognizant of, I guess, the scope of the transfer. So in these two cases, the transfer is quite small. It's, I think, 4,200 square feet per house. And so I think that if with bigger scope, where you're getting significantly more funds, I think we could probably ask for more work to be done. But I think we have to be sensitive to require something that's commensurate with what we're getting. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I think Commissioner Goldblum stated it very well, and I think this is another, as others have said, another tool in the toolbox to strengthen and make it easier for landmark owners to preserve their buildings.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I agree with my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to read the,
Yeah, you said that the transfers are 4,200 per building?
in this case?
Buildings themselves are 1,800 square feet each, according to the DOB.
Wow.
Sorry, 2,000 square feet each. So
that's
it might be a
significant.
little bit in terms of the macro world scale, but for these buildings, it's a lot.
Wow. Wow.
Right. Yeah, these guys are, right. But yeah. I totally agree. Anyway, regarding 159 East 78th Street, individual landmark, the application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding the continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection. with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 75-42 of the zoning resolution. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the owners have committed themselves to upfront restoration and maintenance work that will reinforce the special architectural and historic character of the building and aid in its long-term preservation, that the owners have committed themselves to establishing a perpetual cyclical maintenance program to ensure the continued maintenance and preservation of the building that will be legally enforceable by the Landmarks Preservation Commission under the provisions of a continuing maintenance agreement, which will bind all heirs, successors, and assigns, and which will be recorded in the New York County Registrar's Office, and that the restrictive declaration will require that 10% of the gross proceeds will be deposited into a fund dedicated to the supporting of the cyclical maintenance plan. And I recommend that the plan be modified to expand the scope of work to include the replacing of the previously installed mismatched brick infill and removing paint and resurfacing brownstone at the primary facade. Right? Vote on that first, right?
No, we need.
Or read both at the same time?
No, we need a second and then we.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that motion? Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Quembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
6 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's been approved. Commissioner Goldblum, can you read the second one?
Regarding 161 West East 78th Street, individual landmark, the application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding the continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with a transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 75-42 of the zoning resolution. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the owners have committed themselves to an upfront restoration and maintenance work that will reinforce the special architectural and historic character of the building and aid in its long-term preservation, that the owners have committed themselves to establishing a perpetual cyclical maintenance program to ensure the continued maintenance and preservation of the building, and that will be legally enforceable by the Landmarks Preservation Commission under the provisions of a continuing maintenance agreement, which will bind all heirs, successors, and assigns, and which will be recorded at the New York County Registrar's Office, and that the restrictive declaration will require that 10% of the gross proceeds will be deposited into a fund dedicated to supporting the cyclical maintenance plan. However, I recommend that the initial restoration work be expanded to include replacing previously installed mismatched bricks and removing paint and resurfacing brownstone at the primary facade.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Quembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
With 6 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's been approved with modifications. Thank you. Okay, now Corey, I think wanted to say a couple words.
Yes, thanks. Well, we are going to be breaking for lunch soon, but before we get there, I did want to take this opportunity to acknowledge one of our longtime Preservation Department staff, Mishael Shabrami, who's in the audience today. She is leaving LPC for a historic preservation job with the MTA, so her last day will be this week. Mishael's been in the Preservation Department for just about 20 years, not quite there, but very close. And been a valuable staff person all that time. You all, I think, have seen her a number of times here during the public hearings, most notably for parks projects and definitely quite a few Madison Avenue storefronts. But in general, of course, we all wish you the very best, Mishael. Thank you for your very long career here, and I hope that continues at the MTA. You've made your mark here at LPC in the Preservation Department, and working hard for the city as a whole. So thank you again. Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to thank Corey for the kind words and his leadership, and show immense gratitude to all of you commissioners for volunteering your time and your expertise to make very important decisions that benefit our beloved city and also help retain and restore our culturally and aesthetically significant architecture. I will definitely think fondly on my past 20 years at LPC, especially with regards to our very hardworking, devoted staff that I cherish both my professional and personal relationships with. I take so much pride in putting my fingerprint on the history of New York. So thank you all.
Thank you, Michelle. And congratulations. Good luck on your new endeavor. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes our morning session, and we're going to break for lunch. It is 11:50 now, so come back at 12:30, Corey says. Oh. So we're going to ask all members of the public on Zoom to voluntarily exit at this time so that you don't experience technical difficulties returning to the afternoon session that can arise if we have to remove you from the meeting. Thank you.